Will petrol and diesel be available tomorrow? Will schools be open tomorrow? And do public and private sector employees have to report to work tomorrow? If these are some of the questions that are on your mind, we've got the details lined up for you on Primetime News tonight. Let's start off with a look at your top stories first.
Don't join petrol queues until the 23rd. Government requests people. Evaluation of OL exam papers to continue. Request made to sell fuel for teachers. Public officers to work from home starting tomorrow. No power cuts in the morning, Public Utilities Commission says. Controversial gas supply tender sparks concerns. Election is the solution to the crisis, opposition says.
In your stories in detail now, the Minister of Power and Energy has requested drivers who are not part of emergency or essential services to avoid joining fuel queues until Thursday. Minister Kanchana Wijesekara made the statement speaking at a media briefing held today. He said the government has opened letters of credit worth $90 million to import petrol and diesel shipments into the country.
We were
unloading 40,000 metric tons of diesel. We already had 6,000 metric tons of diesel. Once we released the 6,000 metric tons, now we have 40,000 metric tons. 600 metric tons is produced from the refinery daily. According to the latest numbers I received this morning, we have 4,000 metric tons of octane 92 petrol and 8,300 metric tons of octane 95 petrol. Last night, Lanka IOC said they have 10,000 metric tons of octane 92 petrol and 350 metric tons of petrol is produced from the refinery daily. We expect the next petrol cargo to arrive on the 23rd and a diesel cargo to arrive on the 24th. Last week we released 2,800 metric tons of diesel. We increased that to 6,000 metric tons yesterday. The usual demand is about 4,500 or 5,000 metric tons. As we are distributing petrol under some limits, we request the people to allow it to be sold only for essential purposes and to avoid being in queues for petrol in the next 3 days.
The government is to introduce a new plan to distribute fuel.
Private buses that have a permit to travel along a certain route are requested to avoid pumping fuel at other filling stations. SLTB buses can pump fuel at the nearest depot. Three-wheeler drivers have requested us for a system which will allow them to buy fuel at a low cost. The Pradeshya Sabha Divisional Secretariat Office and the police will identify drivers who run three-wheel hires to earn a living. We will allocate fuel for that, but fuel will only be sold at that particular filling station for that three-wheeler. For other vehicles, we will sell fuel based on certain days, based on the last digit of their number plate.
The minister said fuel will be sold to essential service vehicles on Fridays.
Yesterday, we informed the Health Ministry that fuel will be sold at selected filling stations for health service providers from next Friday. This will only be for special essential services like healthcare. We have proposed healthcare institutions to arrange transport services for their workers. We will implement this system next week.
Minister Kanchana Wijesekara spoke on obtaining a $500 million Indian credit line.
Last month, we expected that the money received under the Indian credit line can be used from the 1st of July. We prepared a plan to import fuel under the $500 million credit line, but we couldn't obtain that for some reason.
Will companies be allowed to distribute fuel?
We will table a cabinet proposal to allow foreign companies to distribute fuel apart from Sipetco and Lanka IOC. The fuel crisis has disrupted the lives of the people across the country. The people are standing and languishing in long queues at filling stations. They are waiting for a solution from the authorities for this crisis. But are they really getting one?
Tensions arose between people and army personnel in a queue for fuel in Mullaitivu last night. The commotion erupted after army officers took custody of a man who obstructed an army officer from doing his duties. People who had gathered at the location attacked army officers with glass bottles, demanding them to release the man. More army officers were sent to the location to bring the situation under control. They had fired gunshots into the air. Police said 7 people, including 3 army officers, were injured in the incident. People were in queues at a filling station near the old bus stand in Vaunia, which has not received fuel for 3 days. They held a protest by blocking the A9 road at the Vaunia town demanding fuel. Police sent back a fuel bowser that was carrying fuel to Jaffna, but the protesters didn't allow the bowser to turn back. Major General Saman Lienegate, the commanding officer of the Army's 56th Infantry Division, intervened to solve the problem. The protesters allowed the bowser to leave after steps were taken to sell fuel to them with a limit of 500 rupees. This is the so-called prosperity that they have created. Farmers who feed the country have been here for many days. I tell the President and Ranil that this is a shame. Farmers in Valimada who feed the nation are on the streets begging for fuel. Resign if you can't do a decent job. Our children are at home. Parents are on the street. Farmers were among those standing in line at the Kappetipula filling station that has not received fuel for 6 days. Tensions arose at a filling station in Nigambo which only sold fuel for police and healthcare workers. Teachers travelling to mark O-level exam papers were also affected. I have been here from 6 a.m. I am going to mark papers. I couldn't pump fuel yesterday or today. Tensions arose for the second time after workers at the filling station announced that stocks were over. But police intervened and instructed workers to sell fuel under certain limits. Queues running for many kilometers were seen in Karapitiya today.
The Galnava hospital was closed today. The hospital was closed because of the fuel crisis.
Healthcare workers at the Galnava hospital had not reported to work due to a fuel shortage. The Galnava hospital was closed temporarily. Workers didn't have fuel to come to work. There are 2 petrol sheds, but none of them sell petrol.
The United Nations resident coordinator says she is troubled by the violence in queues involving the police and the army in Sri Lanka. In a tweet, Hannah Singer urged security forces to understand the people's frustration and to exercise restraint in the use of force. She called on authorities to investigate any excessive use of force. US Ambassador Julie Chung echoed similar sentiments on Twitter. She said that any excessive use of force should be investigated quickly. Moving on, in more local news, Litro Gas Lanka Limited has called for tenders to supply gas to the country for 1 year. But this process has been surrounded by controversy. There is no end in sight for the gas queues across the country. The 2 gas companies in Sri Lanka insist that there will be a steady supply of gas cylinders to the market. Amidst these issues is the controversy stemming from a suspicious process to import 280,000 metric tons of gas for 12 months.
Siam Gas.
Siam Gas had the lowest one. They quoted $96 as the charge for each metric ton. They didn't award the tender to this company. Instead of awarding the tender for the company that asked for $96, they have given it to Oman Trading Company for $129. How many dollars will we lose on each ton? They earn $33 as commissions. They are looting billions eventually. Litro Gas Lanka Limited, the government-run gas company, had called for tenders to supply gas for 12 months to Sri Lanka. 3 foreign companies had submitted their bids, out of which the cheapest was from Singapore's Siam Gas Company. Sri Lanka imports gas from suppliers at the benchmark contract price from Saudi oil giant Aramco. The contract price is about $750 for a metric ton of gas. The government usually awards tenders to a foreign supplier considering their additional charges. Singapore's Siam Gas had agreed to supply gas by charging $96 for freight and insurance in addition to the contract price. Oman Trading had placed a bid to sell gas by charging $129 for freight and insurance. Singapore's Siam Gas was therefore the cheaper option. The Cabinet's Procurement Committee had agreed on the Finance Ministry's proposal to award the tender to Siam Gas Company, but this decision was suspended after the appointment of the new Prime Minister. The price quoted by Siam Gas Company is for 6,000 metric tons, but the company in Oman has one of their gas shipments in the Maldives. They had agreed to supply gas to Sri Lanka for 4 months through that shipment, but they wanted us to buy 100,000 metric tons at $129 in additional charges for each ton. The gas company that was chosen had only agreed to supply 6,600 metric tons, so the cabinet had taken into account the gas demand and the crisis and awarded the tender to the Oman company for 100,000 metric tons. This tender process is marred in controversy. Oman Gas once submitted a tender to supply gas on long term to Sri Lanka. The tender expired on the 9th of January. Did this supplier assist Sri Lanka as gas explosions and a shortage burdened the people? Sri Lanka had to make spot payments for each gas shipment during the last stages of the long-term contract. This payment system continues until today, with most purchases being made from Oman Trading. Should the government award tenders that do not provide relief to the people through any means? Litrogas Lanka Limited has called for tenders to supply 280,000 metric tons of gas for a year. In that case, why were short-term purchases made? These questions are left to be answered by those in responsible offices. 4 chairmen were appointed to Litrogas Lanka Limited between December 2019 and June 2022. It is a testament to the grave crisis the country is facing. Don't these incidents reflect opportunities missed by Sri Lanka to purchase gas at low rates purely due to internal deals? Decisions made by certain officials cost Sri Lanka an extra $33 for each metric ton of gas. Are these officials even sensitive to the people's needs?
Here I'm standing here, I'm just wondering what is the future of my child.
Sri Lanka is facing a food crisis as production levels have dropped due to the fertilizer shortage. Now, all of this has resulted in the cost of vegetables shooting up at the Manning market.
Traders say vegetable prices have rocketed as high fuel prices have led to the contribution to higher transport costs. The rising cost of vegetables has affected consumers. The cost of vegetables was different at other markets in the country. The cost of beans was much less than the rate at the Manning market. Farmers were severely affected after they were unable to sell their produce at the economic centres in Tambuttegama and Kappetipola. They say fewer buyers visit economic centres due to the fuel shortage.
ඉතුරු වෙච්ච බඩු මේවා විකුණ ගන්න බෑ මේ බලන්න. මේවා දැන් කුණු වලට දාන්න දෙලා තියෙනවා. මේවා එකක්වත් ගන්න නැහැ. මිනිස්සු ගෙනියන්නේ නැහැ. මේ ඔක්කොම ඉවරයි. මේ වගේ වැඩක් නැහැ. කටයුත්තක් නැහැ. මේ ඔක්කොම දැන් කුණු ලොරියනකන් ඉන්නේ.
Farmers say about 75% of traders don't visit the Dambula dedicated economic centre.
බතල විකුණන්න ඉල්ලනවා විතරයි යනවනේ මේ විලඳු නැහනේ.
අයියේ.
විලඳු ඉතින් මේ තෙල් නැති හින්දා. ඩීසල් නැහැ මේ විලඳු උගාරිලා එන්නේ නැහැ. වෙනද රුපියල් 100ක දෙන එකනේ මේ. අද 70ට 80කට ගන්න මුදලාilla නැහැ.
අද ගොඩාක් අඩුයි මහත්තයා වෙනදා මිරිස් ගෙනාපුවාම ගෙනාපු ගමන්ම විකුණලා යනවා. දැන් අද උදේ 6ට මාකට් එකට ආව මිරිස් ගෝණි දෙකක් ගෙනල්ලා. දැන් ඔය රුපියල් 300 ගන්න දැන් දීලා මේ යන්නේ.
Students, parents and teachers are facing uncertainty over whether or not schools will be opened tomorrow against the backdrop of the current fuel crisis in the country. The Minister of Education convened a media briefing and clarified these matters today.
What are the schools that will be closed tomorrow?
Schools in Colombo, its suburbs and in all cities across the country will remain closed for a period of 5 days. We identified that schools in cities will be able to provide online education to children as opposed to schools in villages because they have the facilities. Therefore, principals in rural schools can discuss with their staff, adjust the timetable of the school accordingly for the week and continue to operate academic activities at their schools.
Which school will continue to remain open tomorrow?
There are many schools in rural areas that are not interrupted as much by the fuel crisis, where children do not depend on buses and school vans to get to school. I believe that a majority of the 3,000 schools in the country are schools in rural areas. There are many schools with less than 200 children. Schools that are categorized under 1C, 2 and even 1B in areas that are not facing transport issues can continue to operate. Principals of these respective schools can decide on these matters. All they have to do is inform the zonal officers.
Will students in cities be able to attend the school closest to them and continue their academic activities?
Students who are attending schools in cities will be given an opportunity to continue their academic activities at the school that is closest to them. But these students will be assigned to these schools temporarily and not on a permanent basis. Principals are vested with the power to decide on these matters. We have given them the full power to take these decisions.
Will power cuts affect the online education that is being proposed for schools in the cities from tomorrow?
The Public Utilities Commission announced that power cuts will not be imposed between 7 a.m. and 12 noon tomorrow.
Can teachers also teach at the school that is closest to their residence?
We have provided teachers with an opportunity to provide their services at the schools that is closest to them. The teachers will be assigned upon the agreement of the principals of these schools. The period during which these teachers are assigned to these schools will conclude by the end of this year, and by the year 2023, these teachers will be reassigned to the schools that they were working at initially.
Is it mandatory for teachers living far away from schools to report to work?
If there are several teachers who are living far away from the schools that they work at, and if they are facing some difficulties in getting to school due to the fuel crisis, there will be no issue there. Because the services provided by teachers and principals are considered as a voluntary service, there is no issue regarding their holidays as well. Teachers associations are questioning as to how teachers can attend school from tomorrow, given the current fuel shortage in the country.
If village schools are kept open, there is no problem. How can teachers go to schools that will be open? Most of them travel from urban areas. What facilities do they have? There is no proper system. Trade unions representing teachers and principals will decide on how academic sessions will be conducted from tomorrow. Schools in the northwestern province are to be kept open. Teachers in Puttlam have been asked to go to work only on 5 days. Some teachers live 30, 40, 50 or even 60 kilometers from schools. They must be brought to work as well. The education director for Puttlam has said teachers will have to use up their quota of personal leave if they don't come to work.
Public officers will be allowed to work from home starting from tomorrow. Once again, due to the current fuel crisis that the country is facing, this new work from home system will be in effect for a period of 2 weeks.
The Ministry of Public Administration has issued a circular instructing government officials to restrict calling public officers to work from tomorrow. The circular has given powers to the heads of government institutions to call a minimum amount of staff to work to ensure services are not disrupted. Workers can also be assigned to another service institution near their home. According to the circular, even when public officers are called into work, it must be done according to work shifts or any other system. Officials have been instructed to work from home even on days they are not called for work.
The office of a former minister that was damaged during the April 9th violence was reconstructed today. We'll bring you the details after this short commercial break.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙමෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක් මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න
Eva Trusted Confidence now has a fresh new feel. For the first time in Sri Lanka, Eva unveiled an antibacterial layer to minimize microbial growth and control odor, helping you stay fresher throughout the day. Now with maximum absorption. Available in cotton feel wings for maximum comfort and Drytex wings for maximum dryness. Eva, leading with confidence.
Welcome back to the news. A protest dubbed Kitchen Lament was held in Kolpiti this evening. Protesters carried kitchen utensils and expressed their objection against the government. Newsfirst.lk reports.
I'm reporting to you from the Kolpiti junction. As you can see, a group of people are engaged in a protest what they call the Kitchen Lament. They're citing how this economic crisis has affected the kitchens of Sri Lankan households.
The rulers are sitting very comfortably in their luxury homes and enjoying all the privileges. But look at the streets. Everybody is in a petrol queue. People have no gas. The children can't go to school. How is this going to change? We want a change for this beautiful island.
It is not that we have nothing to do in our homes, but it is that we want a system change. Let us bring the lost glory to Sri Lanka. Yes, we can build Sri Lanka again and restore it to its glory that has been lost and destructed.
Here I'm standing here, I'm just wondering what is the future of my child? What is the future of all these children? What is the future of the children who are coming to my school? Because it's really bad. They are finding it difficult to pay the school fees. I'm not able to then go on. How many schools have closed down? You all don't know, the government doesn't know that how many schools today have closed down at a time when it's very crucial, education is very crucial, foundation level education is very crucial.
Steps were taken to reconstruct the office of former Minister Indika Anuruddha in Dewlapitiya today. The former minister's office was attacked during the unrest on the 9th of May.
If some people wanted to show their rage by setting fire, others could have stopped that from happening. Some groups of lawyers are provoking the people. The way they obtain bail for the wrongdoers does not reflect what the people want. They are wrongdoers. They were only granted bail.
How would you feel if all that you own was destroyed? You might have some savings to cushion the blow, but would it be the same for a family who are suffering to simply make ends meet every day? This is the story of such a family that we came across in Hangunawa over Paranagama. Despite the old age of Simon and baby Nona, they still continue to take care of their disabled child. The small hut that they were living in was destroyed by the heavy rains and strong winds that hit recently. The inclement weather did not just destroy their home, it destroyed their lives. All that they built over 34 years is gone now. Simon and baby Nona have two issues that need to be addressed immediately. Firstly, they need to build their house. Secondly, they need food and water. Although this is the story of only one family, this is the plight of countless families in the country now.
News First with the people.
With Sri Lankans suffering due to the current economic crisis in the country, what is the solution proposed by the opposition? We will bring you the details after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Primetime News on TV1.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්නෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටා මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජනනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රංගම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news. Sri Lanka's main opposition party says elections are the solution for the crisis faced by the country.
If there seems to be no solution, let's form an all-party or interim government and go for an election in March. If forming a new government by obtaining the people's mandate can help in finding a solution, then let's do that. Some say there's an issue in finding money to hold an election. The government has planned to build a defence headquarters in Akuregoda at a cost of 12 billion rupees. That is twice the cost of an election. The attention should not be on the expenditure. If we don't have any solution at all to pull us out of this crisis, then we can go for an election. The government has failed. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government has failed.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ රාජ්‍ය සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම අසාර්ථකයි.
Publicfinance.lk is a platform for public finance related matters. Now, information published on this site says that the government can conduct an election by reallocating funds.
Publicfinance.lk has pointed out that the 2020 parliamentary election had cost 5.7 billion rupees to the government. It said the government has allocated more funds for other projects like 19.1 billion rupees for projects of the Defence Ministry, 12 billion rupees to build the Defence Headquarters and 7.3 billion rupees to pay public servants. The Public Finance platform said an election can be held by reallocating funds.
Moving on in more local news, the National People's Power is also insisting that an election must be held to test the people's mandate.
This corrupt parliament must be dissolved within 6 months of passing the 21st Amendment. We must seek a fresh public mandate. Otherwise, we can't achieve political stability. The parliament doesn't have the people's mandate anymore. Some might wonder why we are calling for an election at this time. If 8 billion is spent on that, then let's reduce the expense. Public officers have said they will carry out election duties for free. This must be done because the government is not accepted internationally. If loans are not given to this government, we won't receive fuel, gas or milk powder.
A government survey has found that Sri Lankans spend more than 5,000 rupees to buy cigarettes monthly.
A
A survey carried out by the government has revealed that 6.9 million people smoke cigarettes in Sri Lanka. The survey was carried out in line with the program of the World Health Organization on protecting people from tobacco smoke. The survey revealed that 3.3 million people were exposed to tobacco smoke as a result of second-hand smoking. The Department of Census and Statistics had conducted the survey among people above 15 years. Local think tank Verity Research has called on the government to reintroduce pay-as-you-earn taxes and withholding taxes on cigarettes. Verity Research said the government can earn 93.1 billion rupees this year and 229.3 billion rupees next year by imposing these taxes.
India's External Affairs Minister has said that Sri Lanka should engage with the International Monetary Fund to overcome the economic crisis. He was speaking at an interview with India's CNN News 18 media outlet.
I think they are still sort of working their way through it. My understanding is that they have to engage the IMF. There will be policy recommendations which will be made. Often those are not easy recommendations for any country. When you see them in such dire straits, obviously we'll have to step out and do what we can. Prime Minister was very clear that in many ways this is a very big test of our neighborhood first policy. If you can see the international response, I would say, we stand out.
The central bank printed money for the third time on Friday.
Central bank data show that 48 billion rupees had been printed on Friday. 81 billion rupees have been printed in the last 2 weeks. Official data indicate that 629.2 billion rupees have been printed so far this year.
Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris met with UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet.
Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris has told UN Human Rights Chief that Sri Lanka will continue to engage with the Human Rights Council. He said that the invitation extended to Michelle Bachelet to visit Sri Lanka still continues to stand. The Foreign Minister had met with the diplomats of several countries including China, Australia and Japan.
The Professional and Career Women Global Awards was held in Dubai yesterday.
The Professional and Career Women Global Awards ceremony was held in Dubai yesterday. The event was organized by Women in Management, Global Equality Standard, Sri Lankan Business Council.
Sri Lanka.
Dawn Austin, a veteran of Sri Lanka's export sector, won the award for the Inspirational Woman of the Year.
Mrs. Dawn Austin. She counts over 4 to 6 years in the field of exports.
She was a pioneer in exporting fresh fruits and vegetables from Sri Lanka in the mid-1970s. Dr. Sudarshini Fernando Pule won the Women in Politics Award, while the award for the Women in Entrepreneurship in the Health sector was won by Deshamanya Indrani Fernando.